Welcome back to Dishes with Del. It's Sunday, which means we are making something delicious. This week, we are making a pie. Might sound boring, but this thing is in the words of Great British Bake Off, a showstopper. It's absolutely incredible. The pastry's insane, the filling is delicious. I haven't got much more to say about it, apart from it's Mexican inspired and just freaking tasty. So, let's learn how to make it. How good does that pie look? I'm pumped. So, what we need to do first is make the pastry. As you can see, there's a lot of butter in it. It's quite, a indulgent thing to do. And if I've got anything left over of it, it's great because I can put it in the freezer. But I don't think there'll be too much. So, what we need: 500 grams of butter, kilo of salt, 4 eggs, 120 mils of sugar, 20 grams of salt. It's a lot, but that's what it is. If any of you out there are wondering, this is actually a recipe by Callum Franklin. He is the pie master, got a new restaurant in Paris, very excited for him. But this is his recipe for pie pastry, and it's a banger. We're gonna do it the same way. We're gonna take the salt, we're gonna dissolve it in the sugar. We're gonna take the salt and dissolve it in the ice cold water because we wanna make sure that it's fully incorporated the whole way through the flour and not just in little nuggets. So we'll leave that there to dissolve. We're gonna take all this butter, which is fridge cold, and we're gonna break it up and we're gonna sit them in to here. And we're gonna run the flour over the cubes of butter before we add the paddle, and this way it stops butter sticking to the paddle and not getting incorporated properly. So what we're gonna do, I'll show you in a second, but we're just gonna turn that flour over so that each cube gets coated in the flour. So you're gonna have something that looks like this. All of your cubes have a little bit of flour on every edge. Just make sure they're broken up properly. And that's it. We're gonna put this on the mixer with the paddle, and we're just gonna work it for about 10 or 15 minutes until we have what looks like that lovely sandy texture. I mean, you could always do this in a mixer, one that has the bottom blade and has a bowl that you sit it in, and you pulse it slowly and you get this into breadcrumbs, but this is also an effective way to do it. I mean, you could make this by hand, very labor intensive, and you will have sore hands and fingies probably by the time you've done it all. Make sure it's locked in. We'll pop in the paddle. Oy. Locked. Pop your paddle down, and then on a low speed, first of all, we're gonna start to incorporate that butter. Then we'll probably turn it up to about medium speed to make sure it's all broken up. Here we are though at Chef Tips. The thing I love to do the most, put this guy over so that the flour doesn't go absolutely everywhere. Pull it tight and turn it on to a low speed. And we'll come back to that in 10 minutes or so. So, our dough has been working for about 10 minutes. Now I'm going to show you what it's starting to look like. Also, hardly any flour around. That's because this guy, which was over the top, has caught it all. Honestly, it's the best way to do it. So, here is the dough. As you can see, sandy texture. There's a few little lumps of butter left in it, but that's kind of what we want. But they are mostly gone. Nice and sandy, lovely texture. That's what we want it to look like. So he can go back on there. Salt has fully dissolved in the water. Also, if you're wondering why it's pink, it's because I had like a Himalayan salt. That was what was in the cupboard. It was my table salt. So now what we're going to do, crack the 4 eggs. Make sure you've got no shell in there. Give these a really good whisk with the fork. We're going to take the board away because once we've turned this all together, we're going to tip it out onto the table and just work it into a bit of a lump so that we can wrap it up and pop it in the fridge for half an hour before we roll it out. So this guy back on, I'm going to cover it with my tea towel. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave a little hole at the front here in which I can pour stuff in. Turn it onto a medium speed. We'll add that cold water with the diluted salt. Give it a good whisk around just so in case there are any bits. So that goes in, and then we slowly pour in the egg. As you can hear, the mixer is starting to work hard to get that all together. We just need it to be incorporated and then we'll work it by hand. Here it is, as it goes everywhere. A kilo is a lot for a little mixer like this. I'd say I wouldn't ever mix any more in there. So we'll just tip that out. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry about this mess. I do not like mess like this. And then we're just going to pinch it together with our hands into almost 2 halves. So it's a little bit easier to work with. Bind it together by just squashing it. And because this dough has the egg in it, it makes it nice and supple for when we need to roll it. Okay. That's one bit, and we'll just squash it out because we want to make it a little bit easier for ourselves when we come to roll it. We don't want to work it too much because we want it to be quite short. So there's one bit. And that's it. There they are. We're going to wrap them in cling film and sit them in the fridge for half an hour. We're going to tidy this up. And while they're resting, we're just going to make the filling. If you don't want to make this pastry, you can just fast forward to the filling section and you can see what we're going to do there. So we'll just let these rest for half an hour and then we're going to line our tin. Now for the interior of the pie. So you've either got your pastry working and it's resting. Maybe you're making this the day before, even better, because then it'll be really nice and cold and solid before you put it into your pie. Or you're just making this and you're going to use puff later on. Whichever it is, this is what we're making for the inside. So we're going to make a chilli, essentially. Something a bit different from, you know, your regular boring veggie pies that you often get out there. I've got a couple of mushrooms, I've got 2 carrots, I've got an onion and a half, load of garlic. And then I've got this. This is textured soy protein. It's a really great product. It comes dehydrated, so you are rehydrating it in your mix that you're making. And you know, if you've got some people in the house that maybe, I don't know, love meat but want to cut down, this is a great way to introduce a little bit of protein into a meal that's not just boring old beans, because you know, even as a vegetarian you can eat beans as many days of the week as you like, but sometimes it's just nice to have something a little bit different. So that's all the things, and then I've got here some of the chipotle chilies in the adobe sauce. So this is going to be added to give it that nice Mexican flavour. If you didn't have this, you could just use chili powder, a little bit of smoked paprika, a fresh chili, whatever. This is up for interpretation. Whatever you have in the fridge will be fine. However you like to make your chili, do it however you want, but this is what I'm going to be using. Probably use a little bit of stock if I need to cook it for a little bit longer, but I think with all of this there should be enough liquid to rehydrate this, cook all of that and have a good amount of pie filling. So I've actually got here 100 grams of the soy protein, and yeah, the other stuff is all ready to go. So what we're going to do is sweat it all off. We're going to cook it all down and then I'll show you what it looks like and the consistency that we need to get it to once we do it. And I'll show you that before I add in the protein, and then we're just going to add these two and we're just going to cook it for, and you know, you want to make sure it's like a chili, you know, like they always cook them for a really long time. Same like this, you kind of want it to cook for at least probably 45 minutes, an hour, and you want it to really just taste amazing. You want to give it a good season and just really let all of them flavors develop, which is why this is actually quite good to make the day before, because then it can all just sit in that lovely sauce that you've made and really draw in all them yummy flavors. So I'm going to get this on the go. I'll pop in and out with things that I need to show you, but otherwise we're just going to get it made and then we need to cool it down. I'm lucky, right now it's winter, I'm just going to sit it outside and it's going to cool nice and quickly, but we want it to be nice and cold before we add it to our pastry, because we don't want to melt the pastry as we fill it. So it does need to be cold once it's all done. Yeah, we'll check back in a bit. We've got the garlic and the onion and we're going to sweat them down super slow. We're going to add the carrots and the mushrooms, sweat them all off, get a really great base flavour. Don't rush that. You don't want it to be rushed. You want it to really take on all of the nice caramelised flavours that you are going to add to that. So the mushrooms and the garlic and the onions and the carrots have been sweating down for about 10 minutes, and as you can see they've taken on a little bit of colour, they're super soft, they're nice and sweet, and they're looking wonderful. I added a little teaspoon of salt in there as well, just to kind of get that going, because the salt will draw the water out of the veg. Now I'm going to add in a little tablespoon of tomato paste, just for that little bit of extra depth, and then I'll add in the chilies and stuff and their sauce, just to start cooking down and breaking up, and then we're going to add in the soy and the tomatoes to cook. You can already see, I mean, if you didn't know any better, that would look like mincemeat. It really is a cool product. Now we're just going to add in the tomatoes, and I'm going to fill that can up with some water, the full can, and add that too, and cook this out for the next 10 minutes. So this has been cooking down for about 10 minutes. As you can see, nearly all the extra water has disappeared, and we do need to make this quite thick because obviously it's a pie and we kind of want it to hold its shape. But what's the beauty of using beans is that they obviously have a little bit of a thickening property. So that's been cooking down. Add in the black beans, mix that all together and cook for about another 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, here is our mince, well, protein. I mean, you can see here, it looks absolutely incredible. If you've never used this product and you know, you're a meat eater, I really think you should give it a go, because it's quite amazing. But see how thick it's got? That is purely because we've cooked it down. The beans have started to let out their thickness, which has incorporated into the sauce. I did add about another 50 mils because I felt like the protein hadn't quite finished hydrating, and then I've just cooked it for a little bit longer. I did also add a teaspoon of cumin because when I tasted it, it just wasn't completely full. So again, when you're making this chili, make chili how you like to make chili, but just sort of think about all them flavors. So I ended up adding that teaspoon of cumin just to give it a little bit of an extra depth. And this thickness is what you require, because once it cools and it sets, it'll be nice and thick to put into the pie. We don't want it oozing out when we then heat it up in the actual pie case. Yeah, I mean, this pie is going to serve probably 6 people at least, a good wedge. So if you wanted to do less, then you can. This is just a good large family sized pie. Anyway, I am going to pop this on a tray. I'm going to spread it out nice and thin. We need it to be fully cold before we add it to our pie. crust, because otherwise we'll melt the pastry and all of our work will be undone. So this I'm going to put in the outside fridge. Like I said, it's quite cold here today, so the outside will cool it down fantastically. But yeah, you could make this earlier in the day, and even your pie crust earlier in the day, and kind of have it all ready to go to assemble later, or you could make it the day before, and you know, then it would be super cold and ready to go when you made your pastry. So we'll come back to this when it's cold. We'll line our pie tin, get it in, and yeah, have a banging pie. So here's our pastry. It's had about half an hour sitting in the fridge, and we need to roll it out. So let's get it rolled out. We want to try and keep it in as much as a circle as possible while we're rolling it. Keep moving it around so that it doesn't stick. And what's going to be good about this is that as we start working it, it's going to make it just a little bit more supple so that we can sit it as the pastry starts to warm up a little. You may need to re-flour your rolling pin a little bit. You are certainly working for your dinner making this one. Now this may look like it's getting very large, but we are making a big pie. So you want to make sure that you don't make it too thin, because we need it to hold all of that filling. And now here is my tin. So I'm going to sit it on, here's the circle, we need to come up the edge, so that's going to be out here, and we're going to cut it around. You can now see why we needed so much pastry. But what we're going to do, and what I've already done, is the interior of this, I've used the butter packet, which still has some butter left on it, and I've just worked it all the way around the edge so that this is slightly greased. And we'll take a knife and we'll cut this into a circle. So here is some excess pastry, which we're going to make some nice little designs out of, perhaps, to sit on the top. And then you can fold it up like that and pop it in. And then what you want to do is drop them edges all the way in so that they get all the way to the edge of your tin. Now, of course, you can use a pie tin, but I don't have one, and I had this cake dish and I thought that is almost the exact size of what I need. So that is why we are using this. So once it is fully in, you want to make sure you get it all the way down to the bottom, and we will have some hanging off the edge, but that's okay for the minute, because then when we put the top on, we can cut it and make a nice pretty pattern. But what we will do here is just double check that there are no holes, and if they are, you can take a small piece of the pastry and patch it up. And then we're just going to put some little dinks in the bottom, not all the way through, but this hopefully should ensure that the pastry stays crisp. Now, because this is not a metal tray or a metal container, I'm going to sit it on a metal tray when I bake it. If you had a metal tin, of course, it will crisp a little better, but I'm not going to go out and buy a new tin just because I want to make a pie. If you had a glass one, great also. So that's that first bit. I'm just going to sit this to one side, and what we can do is just get our top also rolled out and ready to go for when we fill it. So I reckon I'm actually not going to need all this pastry because my dish was maybe not as big as I thought it was. So I'm going to take just the smaller half, and this I'm going to put in the freezer. So it's great, I already have some pastry ready made for another day. And I'll take some of these also, smush them back together and put it with this, and this should be enough to make some little decorations. So like always, when you put anything in the freezer, make sure you label it, put the date on there of what it was, when it was made, and what it is, so you know for future reference when you go into the freezer and you're like, what the hell is this guy? So this one, again, a little bit of flour down, a little bit on top. Because we're only using half, I'm just gonna squash this kind of back together into a circle shape-ish. And then we're gonna roll it out to the size of that tin. And that's our top. So we're just gonna make a circle. And this, we're just gonna sit it on a plate. Ooh. And then when we're ready to lid the pie, it's ready to go. So that there, I'll sit on a little bit of greaseproof and pop that in the fridge where it can wait. And then, with our little bits of trimming, we're just gonna make some nice pretty designs. But I'm just gonna get the board out and we can do it on there. Maybe you want some nice leaves or something like that. But it's just nice to be able to decorate it. As you can see with that dough, I did have quite a bit left over, but there is nothing worse than when you make pastry and you don't make enough. So I would always prefer to make a little more than what I actually think I might need, so that I can put some in the freezer if I have any left over, or I have more than enough pastry to make. So I would prefer to always have a little more. But if you didn't want to make such a large one, you know, make a third of the, 3/4 of this recipe, and that would probably give you enough. This is also quite nice, this bit. If you've got kids, you can get them to join in and they can make whatever they like. And again, I've got these little bit of extra stuff left. So what I'm gonna do is add it to that stuff that I'm gonna put in the freezer. And then yeah, I've got almost a whole tart ready to go for the next time. And our little decorations can just sit with this until we are ready to go. The fun bit, the filling, the decorating, the cooking. The oven is on at 185, 190, depending on your oven. It needs to be quite hot. Our filling is cold, so we're just gonna pop all of that into our pie. Oh my God. This smells amazing and it's gonna taste delicious. There it is. In. I've just got a little bit of water here and I'm just gonna run it around the edge of this bit of pastry, because what we need to do now is stick the lid on. So, minus the decorations, and pop the lid on the top. And then we need to squish it together. Need to make sure that every edge is there. And we're going to squash it. Now with a pair of scissors, we'll trim the edge so that we get a nice, neat edge. Make sure it's all sealed tight. Lovely. Now again, wet your fingers, wet the top. And we're just going to make some nice edges into the tart. So just push it like this in. Oh, I have a double fold of pastry here. Cut that bit out. We're going to fold it in. Using your fingers to make a pretty edge. This guy is going to be spectacular. Take a knife and put a hole in the top so that air can escape. We're going to egg wash it. So this is egg yolk with water. So we're going to wash the top. And all along these nice edges. Then we're going to decorate. So the egg wash helps the decorations stick. And then we're going to egg wash again over the top all over the edges. Make sure they're all nicely glazed. And then we're just gonna sit it back in the fridge for about another 5 minutes or so that glaze can set. And then it's going in the oven, 45 minutes, and it's gonna come out and it's gonna be an absolute beauty. Like I said, I cannot take full responsibility for this fantastic pastry recipe. This is all Callum's, but it's gonna be a winner. So, 45 minutes, this thing's going in, and we'll see how it is. We managed to get it out of the tart case, as you may have seen there. Little bit of a struggle, was worried it was not going to turn out, but that is the problem with not using a tin that's loose bottomed. But it doesn't matter, because here she is in all of its glory, this insane pie. I mean, this is an absolute showstopper. You want to be taking this to your pal's house, you want to be showing it off. I mean, my God, it's beautiful. It's absolutely sensational. It's an incredible pie. It's, you know, Great British Bake Off worthy, showstopper week. Here we are. And after I took it out and got it out on the board, it is now sat here ready for us to eat. And what I've realized is that I forgot to put the cheese in. Classic. This thing, I can't believe I forgot to put the cheese in, is when you've put that pie mix in, just put a load of cheese on top of it. I can't believe I forgot, but again, that's how it goes sometimes. So without further ado, I think we should slice into this. The crust on this thing is insane. We're crispy, we're crunchy everywhere. It looks incredible. Oh, the pastry, so flaky. Oh my God, it's holding together. And just, oh, look at that. If that isn't the most perfect looking pie, I don't know what is. It's all holding together. That's why it's really important that your mix is thick before you add it. I mean, it just looks amazing. I think we should give it a try. Oh my God, honestly, the pastry is just freaking so crisp and so great. Amazing. What I do suggest though is when you take it out of the oven that you let it rest in the tin for at least 15 to 20 minutes, because you need that pastry just to slightly cool and to sort of set in place. That, I would say, is very important. So now we get a fork, and here we are. I don't know if you heard that, but that was the crispy pastry. Oh my God. Oh. That pastry is insane. That filling is absolutely delicious as well. I mean, oh. Even though I forgot the cheese, it's still sensational. And I mean, honestly, if you hadn't have told anyone that that wasn't mincemeat, they would not know. This has probably been one of my best pies to date. So thank you, Callum, for the wonderful recipe on the pastry. And I really hope that you guys out there make one of these too, and make the effort to make this pastry, because you will not regret it. I'm gonna get back to eating this, and I'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate you all. Let me know if you make one of these beauties in the comment section down below, or even if you make a mini version of it. I would love to see them, and I would love to know how it turned out. So I will see you guys next week. Catch you later. Look at that thing. Look at it.